There we go.
There we go. Shall we start?
Let's begin.
Just like this, we're going to do the coldest of cold opens. Welcome, everybody, to a very special test of the Heresy Hammer emergency broadcast system on this, the day of the resurrection of our Lord and Saviour, Perturabo. You join myself and Robert. Say hello, Rob.
Hello, everybody.
We
Hello.
are
Happy Easter if
Happy
you are
Easter.
watching this on the day that it comes out.
Yeah, I hope you're all enjoying your eggs. You'll find us very sleepily because we both forgot that the clocks went forwards. So when we set the time up for this particular record, we thought it seems very reasonable. Turns out, actually, we've lost an hour of sleep, and now I'm tired.
Indeed.
So we thought we would record this episode because we knew that Lee wasn't going to be here. So we thought we'd have a nice, peaceful, relaxing morning. And we are going to be discussing the new characters from the upcoming Battle for Beta-Garmon book.
This is a big deal, this episode, isn't it?
It's a huge deal. I would say it's probably the third biggest deal we've ever had.
I would agree with that. With Patreon being the first or second, what would you say?
First, and then for some obscure reason, the lore video for the Siege of Cathonia being the second.
I love it. We will be doing a lore video shortly.
We will. Once Rob has finished reading the lore, I can dissect it.
Yeah. I need to make lots of notes. That's the problem.
I'm going to be honest with you. Rob is going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting for that episode. So.
I think the Siege of Cathonia one took like 7 hours to prepare a 1 hour show, but it's always
yeah. Oh well, never mind. That's your own silly fault, isn't it?
It is.
So the battle for Beta-Garmon is hotly anticipated, this book, especially after the success of Cathonia, correct?
Yeah, I do 100% agree with that. And actually, it seems this book probably has more variety than the Siege of Cathonia.
I agree. I think the thing...
Sorry.
Sorry. No, you go.
I was just going to say that it's been interesting, people's reactions to the Shattered Legions rules. So lots of people won't have actually seen those in the hand. They will have just heard nightmare stories. I think that a sane and sensible person would probably just wait to see what they're like in the hand. Although there looks to be a fair amount of admin that could slow down what I think is already quite a long game. It's not like it's a skirmish game, like a 3K game will take 3 hours. So if there's more admin involved, then that might be an issue. I do think, though, sometimes you just like, well, if you played with them for like 5-10 games, you'll probably be pretty okay about knowing which unit has which rule at which time, especially if you're only using two legions. Like if you're just using 2, then I think that it's absolutely fine. So I think that it's been spearheaded, the kind of the negativity has been spearheaded by a few people on the internet. But I just think sometimes just take a step back and let's just wait. I mean, if we play it and it's a nightmare, then that's fine. But not many people, I would have thought, have actually played it.
No, I think what we've decided that we're going to do a series on simplifying the Shattered Legions over on the Patreon. So get ready for that. So we want to kind of break it down and kind of make it easier to understand and to play. Unless, of course, we actually decide after having played some games that it's not easy to understand and very difficult to play. In which case, we'll tell you, or we'll do something else.
Yeah.
So I think the most exciting thing about the Battle for Beta-Garmon is the fact that, unlike the Siege of Cathonia, there's a lot that already exists about Beta-Garmon, as in terms of the lore. There are novels, etc., etc. But also, it fleshes out the majority of the big names in terms of characters that we were missing, right?
Yeah.
That's what's really got people kind of hot under the collar, hasn't it?
100%. Like, this has been a really character-driven edition. And there has definitely been a change from 1.0 to 2.0. So if you're a veteran of the Long War, you'll know that the old Forge World team spent a long time almost developing and creating new characters that we had never seen in the books before. This edition, you know, from Fafnir Rand that we first saw to Dominion Zephon has really leaned into the Black Library characters.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you were to create a kind of a podium of characters who we have yet to see so far, like big standout names, I reckon they're pretty much all three included in this novel.
Yeah, 100%.
Them obviously missing the main character we get to see, which is Forex, but never mind. We'll keep holding out. Maybe the next book.
Yeah, we'll get to there. I'd imagine at some point.
Good. So without further ado, we are going to go through the rules for all of the new special characters and the 2 new console types within the book. We're going to give you our first impressions, and we are going to discuss, we're going to rate, and then we're going to go back to bed. Sound good?
That sounds great. It's great for an emergency break the glass session. I'm looking forward to this today.
Okay, here he is, the little guy, little Horus Aximand. So this, I mean, like, little Horus has been there since day one. It's page 3 in book 1, basically. Little Horus has been with us the entire way, and we're finally getting rules, and importantly, there will come a miniature as well, which is fucking damn exciting.
Yeah, really, really cool. It'll be interesting to see whether he has half a face. I reckon it probably will be. He'll be a half head with it sewn back on, because that's so iconic now within the kind of like the lore of Aximand, right?
Absolutely. What you've done, Rob, is I've just noticed you have not used the updated PowerPoint that I changed all of the spelling mistakes on. So I apologize for spelling mistakes, because I've just realized that I have not gone through and corrected Rob's. For someone who was supposed to be teaching the youth of today, so absolutely appalling.
That's the little details that I leave you and Lee.
That is true, actually. Yeah,
I don't worry about that kind of nonsense.
As overseer.
Yes, correct. Anyway, I'm sure we can muddle through with
absolutely
spelling mistakes.
So little Horus has got Praetor stats.
Yeah, but he's got leadership 9. Which I think is an interesting choice, considering he has no stubborn within his rules as well. So if he loses a combat, he is fucked, I think.
He is fucked. But is he going to be losing any combats is the question. He's also got he's got a 2 out of 4 up from his Iron Halo and Artificer armor, but he's also got a Castigator's combat shield.
Yeah. So the Castigators is an interesting entry for that you guys cannot see, because we've basically condensed the rules for you. But essentially, the way that it is written suggests to me that this is going to be a combat shield that we are going to see more often, because it mentions the fact that it can be improved with the Cyber Familiar. Well, of course, little Horus Aximand is a unique character and cannot take a Cyber Familiar. So this may be war gear that we'll see on future units, which would be great, because a 5-up invuln by the Castigator combat shield is Trebian, because it shits all over the current 6-up combat shield.
It's literally 100% better. But it also, basically the additional rule is every vulnerable save that you successfully make does a strength 4 AP dash attack against the opponent.
Yeah.
Do you care?
Not hugely, but it's better than nothing.
It is, but he's also got a 4-up from Iron Halo, so you're probably going to take the Iron Halo save, if we're being perfectly honest with you.
That is correct. So it is interesting, this entry, less for him, more for what it could be showing us for future units.
Yeah, so he has his warlord trait is just called Little Horus, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so basically, upon the first time that he dies, he will regain, rather than being slain, he stands back up on D3 wounds, unless he has suffered an instant death attack.
Now, this is really interesting, because you need to be really careful about murderous strike attacks from a Paragon Blade. However, don't forget that Sons of Horus on the first round of combat are -1 strength. So a Thunder Hammer attack, for example, would not be instant deathing him. So be really careful and mindful of that. So just, for Sons of Horus, this actually is way better than you might expect. And it's not even like, this is great, because you don't have to roll, say, a D6, and on a roll of a 1, he doesn't come back to life. He just
gets back up.
He just comes back to life. Now, what I don't know, and what isn't clear within the rules, is, let's say you kill him with your where say you're you kill him with the first 3 attacks. What
Mm-hmm.
then happens with the remainder of the attacks? Do they go on to a zombie kind of like Horus Aximand, or are they wasted?
I
That
think
would
they'd be
be,
wasted,
yeah.
personally. I think that they would be wasted, and then in the combat he stands back up again. His warlord trait, if you take him as your warlord, is haunted. Which, I'm sorry, that's not his warlord trait. His special rule is haunted, which essentially, if he is involved in a combat that also involves Loken, and Loken is destroyed, so like being swept or someone else knocking him over the head, you gain an additional VP.
Yep.
If Little Horus kills Loken in a challenge, you gain an additional 2 VP.
Very cool, right? Really cool, this rule. Yeah.
Very cool. And he's quite likely to kill Loken in a challenge because Mornital is really good.
Really good.
So Mornital is strength 1, strength plus 1, strength user plus 1, so strength 5. It's AP 2. It's mastercrafted, and it has murderous strike 5 plus.
Yeah, so it's better than a Paragon Blade because it's obviously a 5-up murderous strike, but also it's mastercrafted, and you have to, for a Praetor, you have to pay like 10 points for mastercrafted to mastercraft weapon. So yeah, I think that on balance, I actually think he's probably worth his points.
I think he's worth his points. 170 points as well. Pretty good.
I think you're going to need to put him with a stubborn unit like Justarin, a command squad with a banner.
Or someone with a herald, just to give him the fearless. Yeah.
A herald, I think, would be better because even the banner, if he's with a command squad, the banner doesn't have stubborn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that with a herald, he would be an absolute beast.
Yep. An absolute murder machine. But you have got to be careful. Yeah, like you said, you've got to be careful he doesn't run away because he's say.
I quite like that though because when I was
because he does run away.
Yeah, when I put this together, I was like, he is kind of, as the rule says, he is haunted constantly by Loken within the Black Library novels. Like he's got kind of quite a lot of psychological issues going on post Isstvan 3. And then so I quite like the fact that that's represented within the -1 leadership. I think
I do.
Really
I think that's a really nice little Easter egg. Oh, topical. Yeah, that's really, really good. So Little Horus gets a thumbs up from me. Do you get a thumbs up from you?
Love it. Yeah, I think
thumbs up. 2 thumbs up from Rob. Right, okay. We'll move swiftly on to Tibor Mah. So Marr, we've obviously seen previously.
Yeah.
We saw him in book 6.
Yeah, so he was in book 6, and then we saw him again in the Legacies rules.
The Legacies PDF, yes. But he's never had a miniature or, let's be honest, proper rules.
No,
so
correct.
I'm going to start out by saying I think this miniature is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And I like the fact, I'm not sure I was on the episode where we talked about it initially, but I like the fact that he's sort of clearly in artificer armor, but quite plain.
Yeah.
So with like a couple, 5 minutes of a hobby knife and a different shoulder pad, like you've got someone completely different.
Yep, 100%. I think actually this would be a great base model for a Legion Herald. Actually, I think this would be fantastic.
Oh, yeah, I think this is cool. I think this model is great. I think it will sell like hotcakes. If you've not already bought one, go and buy one. So Tibor Mah, he has got no, he's not. He's not got Praetor level stats.
No, he has. No, yeah, he's got Praetor level stats. Yeah,
he's got an Iron Halo. He has a Bane Strike Bolter.
Yeah,
he has Hatred, Shattered Legions. Again, very, very thematic because that's what he's designed to do. That's what he's doing post Isstvan, is hunting down the fucking mooks that have clubbed together. He's 160 points, and he has his warlord trait is by the Hunter's Moon. So once per battle, at the end of the controlling player's movement phase, Tibor Mah can conduct a shock assault. When he does so, each enemy unit within 12 inches of Tibor Mah must take a pinning test. Like it. Just bam.
So I think that this is the rules look. It looks like he's short on rules. So now it is a 1-page entry, but obviously Games Workshop obviously given us lots of the rules, which is why it looks so short. But I think that this warlord, if you take him as a warlord, I think that the smart choice would be to put him in with a Legion Herald. Like, I'm not going to say that for every entry I have today, but the reason why I'd put him with a Legion Herald, say, over a command squad, would be because the Legion Herald creates a Fear 1 bubble.
Yeah.
And then that just leverages the pinning on Tibor Mah a bit better. And if you can get a second turn kind of assault off along with hopefully night fight is still in effect. I think even better. Plus the fear, plus the night fight, plus then this. Yeah, you're trying to pin units on the Overwatch. That's the the Overwatch and the evade reactions and the return fire reactions.
It's worth bearing in mind this happens at the beginning of the movement phase, so you can't, for instance, just throw him into a Proteus, chuck him forwards, have him hop out, and then go.
No, at the end of his controlling player's phase.
Oh, it's the end of the movement phase.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. Edit that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, in which case you definitely can do that. In which case you should 100% chuck him in a Proteus with a unit of veterans and a Herald and just drive him forwards and just bomb him into the middle of your opponent's ranks.
That's exactly, you know what? That's exactly what I think that people should do, or a squad of Reavers, and one of those two.
I just feel like the command squad and the veteran squad is just more appropriate for him. Yeah.
Love that. Cool. He did get a complete and utter glow up with his weapon though, because
which was previously fucking crap.
Really shit. It was like AP dash and you know, like breaching whatever. But it's basically got a really cool Paragon blade now. Yeah.
Mainly because it's got fleshbane, so it's only strength as user, which is we know both of us, having played with Varen Asher at various times, strength as user is
not great,
unhelpful.
Yeah.
But at least he gets to reroll for fleshbane, so that's cool. Again, is it a thumbs up for Tibor Mah?
Yeah, I think he's brilliant, and I think that. But if you want to make use of him, you are really, really going to need to pair him with a Herald, I think.
Yeah, I think for 160 points, I think he's again pretty good value. Like, you know, he's. Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of these, there's going to be synergies that you're going to need to be involved in order to get the most out of them. But I think this is cool. I think that the Warlord trait on its own is worth a lot of points, much like Horus Aximand, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Shadrak Meduson. So this guy caused an awful lot of a stir when we saw him, because it's the first Iron Hands named character we've had.
Yeah. Ever.
Super cool. Ever. And he was like the one, wasn't he? Like he is like the guy. So he's a bit more expensive. He's 175 points, and he has just a standard Praetor stat line, which is absolutely fine. Comes with a servo arm. He also comes.
So just to mention on servo arm, because we only discussed this kind of not too long ago. So it's interesting. So he has a servo arm, but he doesn't have the Battlesmith rule. So I just think that's interesting. So really, the servo arm is there for extra attacks.
Yeah, 100%. It's there for the extra attack at initiative 1 at strength 8, or obviously you can put all your attacks if you wanted to into the servo arm as well, which is super useful. So you can put all his 4 standard attacks into the servo arm. So he's stubborn, which is obviously brilliant. Stubborn 10 is king shit.
Yeah.
He's also battle hardened 1, as well as being because the interesting thing is he's not a Legiones to start his Iron Hand.
No, he is a Legiones to start his Iron Hand. But he can replace it with Shattered Legion. He can replace it with Shattered Legions.
Yeah. Apologies, you're right, yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, he can be effectively toughness, for want of a better term, sort of pseudo toughness.
Well, it'd be like you need strength 12 to on the shooting. You'd need, I think, strength 12 to double them out because of battle hardened. Yeah.
So he has a mastercrafted bolt gun, which is a rending 6-up.
Yeah, not too shabby.
Not too shabby. It's better to have it and need it than need it and not have it, I think.
Yeah, and it's also because obviously he's relentless. It's yeah, you can double tap and you can charge as well, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has an Albion Power Gladius.
So this is interesting because this is a piece of war gear that is pretty similar to what he had previously in the previous rules. Yeah, +1 strength, AP3, melee mastercrafted, breaching 5-up. It's just basically a bit of a fancier power sword. But as you say, he's got the servo arm to rely on as well. So he's a really strong character. And I actually think for 175 points, when you think about the Iron Hands rule, Battle Hardened 1, I you know, he's as survivable as say uh, Abaddon is.
Yeah.
Just in the shooting, he's like the shooting version of Abaddon, whereas Abaddon is the close combat beast.
Yeah. He's got an Iron Halo as well, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's survivable. He's really survivable, really tanky. His output might not be kind of quite as exciting as some of the others, but he'll get there and he'll stay there.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the best thing to look at it.
Yeah.
So his warlord trait is Raise the Storm. It's a real shame that his artwork isn't mirrored in the actual miniature, I think, which is, but there you go. Such is life. I'm not a digital sculptor, so I don't know how difficult that is. So once per battle, at the start of any turn where Shadrak Meduson's controlling player is the active player, this special rule may be activated. For the duration of the turn on which this special rule is activated, all models in the same detachment as Shadrak Meduson with the Legiones Astartes Iron Hands or Shattered Legion special rule gain Furious Charge 1 and Hatred Traitors.
Yeah, that's going to be massively useful. So, you know, if I was an Iron Hands player, I would, you know, I think the thing is that Iron Hands players probably have a choice about taking a Praetor plus a Cyber Familiar. So they might be like, oh, well, I just want that sweet 4-up in my Cataphractii armor or with my Iron Halo. But I think that this is going to be a real
3-up, Roberts.
Real decent option, I think. Yeah,
I think so.
3-up with the Cyber Familiar.
But I think you take as many Morlocks as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And then you just declare the Morlock bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see this guy going with a bunch of Morlocks because they can be taken as a, you know,
retinue.
Like a retinue, exactly. Like they'll have line. They all have the same rule. They're all battle hardened, right? You know, they're absence. And because he's stubborn, I don't know if the Morlock's stubborn, but because he's stubborn, that's great when you're considering the banner being leadership 10 or whatever. So.
Oh my god, they're so good. They're just so good. Oh, what an absolute hero. Again, a thumbs up from you, Rob.
Yeah, I think that of all the ones we've seen so far, I actually think point for point, he's the best rules-wise that we've seen.
Hard to disagree. Well, let's see if this gets any better. Hibou Khan. Again, fucking look at the miniature. So good. So good. The Mark II is... Oh...
Yeah, so really cool.
Face is wonderful.
There's a the paint job, the skull paint job they did on the bare face is brilliant because to work at such a small level with those teeth that are so clear. Yeah, it was brilliant. So so Steve Sculpts, who used to be, I think his name is Steve Sculpts, who is on Instagram. He used to be a Forge World sculptor, and he was saying on his post actually that he had initially designed this, and it was a really plain model. And then when he saw the release model, he was like, they've added loads of stuff to it. So I'd be interested to see the OG kind of like version. But I think he's really cool.
I don't think he looks too busy.
Not at all. Not at all. The only thing I probably don't like are the pointy feet, but I suppose that's very Mongolian in its.
I quite like them, but again, it would be an easy trim with a sharp blade, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the only other thing I would say is that if you don't want to use Hibou Khan, I think that this is just such a cool Praetor model for the White Scars anyway. Like, I think it absolutely shits all over the previous version, the Mark II version that we've got. This is like a complete glow up for that model. You know, it's just like, they're not even comparable how good this model is in comparison to that one.
No, and the other, I don't think the other one is bad, but also as well, like the other one doesn't necessarily scream to me White Scar, whereas this guy does.
Yeah,
as he should.
Awesome.
It's Hibou Khan.
Yeah, really cool.
Okay, so you can either look at this one of two ways. He either has a Praetor stat line with reduced wounds and attacks, or he has a Centurion stat line with buffed weapon skill.
With weapon skill, yeah. That's a good way to view it.
The big way of looking at it is he's only got 2 wounds and he's only got 3 attacks on his profile, which is a shame. How many points is he, by the way? I got the points down for this guy.
Yeah, I'd say I will find out while you talk us through this.
That's fine. So, good stuff is he is stubborn. He's only got a refractor field, which is a bit irritating. So, he's only got 5 up with his 2 wounds. He's stubborn. However, he does have the Koresh rule and feel no pain 5 up. So, he's not worth victory points if he is killed, which is really cool.
Well, So it is interesting about this because I think there's a couple of things to unpick with the video that me and Lee did only this week.
Yeah.
So he would usually have real problems being Karash, joining another unit with
Yeah.
it. Like he couldn't basically you can't join a non-crash unit for a White Scars 101. A non-crash unit cannot join a crash unit.
Yeah.
So he, in his form as he is at the moment, he could join the Ebon Keshig, and then now that's actually not a bad shout for him to join Ebon Keshig, because they all go at their initiative. They've all got Feel No Pain 5 up.
Yeah.
The Ebon Keshig have 3 attacks each, so they're all pretty similar. Like I think that actually it's a nice place for him to fit in. I think as well, you could even argue, and I would like to see a cool black version of Hibou Khan.
Yes,
would be really cool if they went with that. However, the only right he is allowed to take, because he still has Master of the Legion, is the second Mazan. And that is that's the right that you're referring to when they don't give up VPs. I think it comes from the right, but that gives
it actually comes from the Karash rule.
Comes from the Karash rule. Okay, nice. But that gives all infantry units Karash and Feel No Pain for free. You don't even need to pay for it; it just comes for free. So then
it's it's been reworded in the FAQ. So it's basically non-unique units, non-unique infantry units is how it's now described. Just to kind of clear some stuff up.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so you can buy it for like for the Primarch, right, or Kinzar. But it's such an obvious choice to take the Sagi Mazan Rite of War, and this guy, so he can join any unit that he wants to. But it's also, I think, more importantly than anything else, is that the Sagi Mazan, I've always felt, is a particular right for a particular kind of army. Whereas I think White Scars players will just be like, well, I'll just take this one because it's clearly just so good. But I think it's a great excuse to take the Sagi Mazan Rite of War, because Hibou Khan is just literally like, he is the Sagi Mazan. So that's great.
Absolutely. So his weapon, Breath of the Storm, has loads of rules. So it's +2 strength, so it's strength 6. It's AP3. It's two-handed. You get Sudden Strike 1, which is really useful, as we know initiative is the thing.
It's nice.
Initiative is what wins combats. It's breaching 4+, and Murderous Strike 6 up. So again, you've got to be a little bit careful, because he's not got too many attacks on his profile. So much like a lot of the White Scars, like when we talked about kind of things like Ebon Keshig and Golden Keshig, you need to keep momentum to kind of keep winning combats.
That is true. Although, because I'm just looking at the Sagi Mazan right now, they gain Fearless in the duration of any assault phase in which they make a successful charge. So if they don't, they won't fall back. But you really want to be winning those combats and moving on to another one.
Well, the reason you really want to be winning those combats is because of his warlord trait, which is Seeker of Atonement. So if Hibou Khan is the army's warlord, then both Hibou Khan and any unit he joins gains the Rampage 2 special rule.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So you want to put him with a little unit, like Ebon Keshig.
Yes.
You want to paint him black, and you want to drive him forwards, and just disgorge him into the enemy.
Yeah, I fucking love this. This is really cool. Rules, really cool model. The whole vibe of it is fucking
interestingly as well. I like this kind of slight change to the reaction slot allotment as well. So if Hibou Khan has not been removed as a casualty, an army of Hibou Khan as its warlord may make an additional reaction during the opposing player's movement phase. But if he has been removed as a casualty, then they gain an additional reaction during the opposing player's assault phase,
which is super unique actually. But you will more often than not, if I can't think of any example of where if your warlord is dead, you still get that reaction. So that's brilliant.
Absolutely. Can't think of another one either. And how many points is he, Rob?
So he's 165 points. I think the issue is going to be, and we're getting more into the tactical side on this one. So just to go back to...
Save that for the paywall, please.
Yeah, so just to go back to the limitations on this Sagi Mazan. So attachment using this Rite of War may not include any heavy support that are not composed entirely of models with the infantry unit type. So, and I think that, if memory serves me, the Ebon Keshig can't buy
Proteus.
A Proteus, which is so frustrating because it'd be great if you could put him in a Proteus, but I think that he's either going to be foot slogging, and I don't think you can deep strike either. So, but I tell you where this would be great is in any and all ZM games. Like he's almost like an auto include for for them.
Maybe take a Warmonger. I can't join. Warmonger can't join.
Well, no. So, the Warmonger can in the Sagimazam Rite of War. But you can't. What you can't do, I think, is deep strike in the Sagimazam Rite of War. So let me just double check. Not only which detachment are using the Rite of War may not choose to place any units into reserve as such. So the problem I think you're going to have if you want to put him in Ebon Kashig is that you're going to have to foot slog it. If you put him with a squad of veterans.
You go to Proteus.
Oh, you can't go to Proteus because they can't buy Proteus, can they?
They can't buy Proteus.
Oh god, yeah. So you could put. Oh god, and but you could put him in a command squad, I guess. And then
you could put him in a command squad.
Yeah, so you kind of limit it. Actually, just thinking through the options, I saw White Scar players have probably already done this, but just thinking through the options, you've got to be really careful about what unit you want to put him with if you want to take the Sagimazam Rite of War.
What a piece of work. I mean, you could obviously take no Rite of War at all. That's the other thing.
But Sagimazam is just so good. It's
so good. Exactly. But like, why would you cut off your nose to spite your face?
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing I would say about him, just like the Iron Hands Shadrak Meduson, they can change their White Scars rule to Shattered Legions rule. So they're one of those two characters can just become Legiones are started Shattered Legion, so you can take them in a Shattered Legion as HQs.
Okay. Anred Hart. So this guy, we've obviously seen a fair bit of. We've seen the miniature. He's been talked about loads. He's a fucking massive. So shout out to Dan from Gate 3D who gave us a great timeline in one of our group chats yesterday of Anred Hart and how he became who he was. So he was a Thunder Warrior who then became a Proto Astartes, who then became a World Eater, but chose not to have the nails installed, who then basically just then seceded from the Legion and became like fucking pirate captain, basically.
Yeah, I don't think it's as obvious in the books that he is a Thunder Warrior. I think that there is a suggestion that he fought with Thunder Warriors and might have kind of like some gene tech, but I think the implication is that he could potentially be a Thunder Warrior.
It would explain why he's such a massive boy and why he's got so many survivey rules.
Yeah, 100%, because he's an absolute monster.
Fucking tank.
Yeah.
So he is super cool because obviously we had the Mian Reaver in the first edition as a Black Shields character, but never had a model. And Anred Hart featured Psyche so heavily in the Black Shields lore.
Yeah.
And now we've got both the rules and a miniature.
Yeah.
So, I love this guy so much. So he's got a standard Praetor stat line apart from the fact that he's toughness 5 on his profile.
Nuts.
Fucking.
So just to start off with that first bullet point. So far you would need strength 10 to instant death him. So far.
He's got Hatred World Eaters, which again, lovely little callback.
Brilliant.
Like that. He's then battle hardened 1.
So you would actually need strength 12 to actually kill him.
He comes with an Architect pistol, which is cool.
Yep.
And he also comes with a Terawatt pattern gauntlet, which is king shit. So basically, it's got Thunder Hammer stats. Yes. So it's stuff 2 strength, unwieldy AP2, specialist weapon, and brutal 2. But if you wanted to, you can mega punch and charge up his big old hand and swing it for half the number of attacks rounding up, but it makes it strength 12. So it goes to strength user times 3. So on the charge, for instance, he would have 3 attacks at strength 12. So for instance, he could just like fucking Hadouken punch a javelin land speeder out of the sky.
Yeah. A Castellax isn't going to stick around for long against this guy.
No. And if we believe to be true coming, we know we're getting ready for the Mechanicum meta, aren't we? So this guy is going to be the absolute anti-Mechanicum meta, just punching slugs to the ground, left, right, and center. Fucking great. But also the other thing that's great, I think, and this is wild, is Fangs of the Emperor, which is his warlord trait. So what's Fangs doing, Rob?
So he can scout up to 3 non-bulky infantry units. And he also has an additional assault phase reaction. Excuse my spelling there. So so a couple of things on this. So I think we've probably talked about it an awful lot in the Tacticas on Patreon, but basically Siege of Terror missions, if you have infiltrate or scout and can scout onto an objective from the first turn and just get it, and you can start scoring from the first turn in that particular mission, I feel very strongly that basically 9 times out of 10 you've basically won the game, because all the scoring is in no man's land. And yeah, it's nuts. Now, the other thing I would say is that it says non-bulky infantry units gain scout, but that will confer onto a dedicated transport, because the unit gains the scout, and then because the unit has scout, then that confers onto the dedicated. So actually, you could, if it's in a transport, you could scout up to like 12 inches on a
it's so powerful. It's so powerful. I mean, Christ almighty, you might be tempted to pay 165 points just for that rule alone.
Yeah, 100%. Like this is ape shit that he can scout through units. Like you're feeling basically like an Alpha Legion kind of like named character here, our Milith Dynat. That's the kind of like levels that we've got to. And then if you consider, say, ZM games, and you can just scout up like 6 inches, because you obviously have access to a dedicated transport there with certain units. I mean, that basically gives you a turn of movement. Like, absolutely brilliant. So good.
Yes, I was having interesting Black Shield's thoughts prior to reading these rules, and now, love it.
Yeah, it seems to me. It seems to me that if you're a Black Shields player, you're just going to take this guy.
Yeah. I mean, this guy is 2 thumbs up for me.
Yeah, he's good. I think the price of him, though, in terms of money, he's 2 thumbs down for me. £36 for that model.
Fucking mental.
And then I was like, oh, he must be on a 40mm base, so he must be absolutely fucking huge. He's not. He's on a 32mm base. I was like, £36 for that. Fuck my life. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we had this discussion yesterday. It's a shame that they've stopped doing the character series models properly.
100%.
Like, it's a real shame, because I think that it was such an event by a character series model before, because they came with like the cool base, and they came in the nice box, and it was like it felt like a premium product.
It was a thing, right? Yeah.
And I would happily, if this guy was on a like a cool, really cool scenic base in a black box, I would happily pay north of 40 quid for him.
Yeah, well,
£36 to come in.
Yeah, Alexis Pollux is on a nice insert base, and he's like 56 quid, and basically everybody buys that model for their army at some point. Yeah,
I just think £36 for this guy in like a fucking 2p plastic clamshell is maybe a bit much.
Yes, I completely agree. Especially is he's not on a 40mm base. I was like, okay, I can see. He
must be Terminator size.
Yeah, that's what. I mean,
he probably is Terminator size, if we're being honest. Like, we haven't seen the model in the hand yet, and he looks monstrous. Like, he is filling that base.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, and almost auto include, I think, for the Black Shields. We haven't kind of looked properly at the Black Shields rules yet. That will come in the coming months, won't it? But
certainly on the surface, get this guy.
Yep.
So we move from the special characters into the Legion characters.
Yes.
So this is the Opte. So Rob, what is the Opte? Why might you take the Opte? What is going on with the Opte?
So I feel quite have a top-heavy command structure in the Legions. It's a terrible organization for being so top-heavy with their management style.
Are you saying what we need is a layer of middle management?
This is the middle manager, right? So the way it is described is that this
ergonomic management keyboard.
That's a great peep show reference. So this basically is not the Delegatus, not the Praetor. This would, like, Delegatus and Praetor will not be given garrison duty.
This is your line manager.
Yeah, so those two
supervisor.
Yeah, so those two, Delegatus Separated, would not be given garrison duty. They would not be given kind of like latrine duties to clean up, but they do need a level within the legions of middle management that can do that kind of thing. So it might not be conquering a world, but it might be looking after a fortress. And so in comes the Legion Opte. Now, the Legion Opte is a really interesting choice because he is a 40-point compulsory HQ. So he can, so if you are somebody, and I think this is where I think it gets interesting, if you're somebody who's like, oh, I need a compulsory HQ, but I've filled my points up with, say, the Primarch, I will just take this guy just to fill the compulsory HQ. And I think that is kind of like an interesting option. But I think when I was weighing it up, I was like, oh, but the consoles are so good. You know, Masters of Signal, for example, is absolutely brilliant, does a whole load of stuff. But I think if you're tight for points, you go into a doubles event, you have got a Primarch in your list, so you've got loads of points tied up. A Legion Opte is a really cool option. He's also not too shabby in close combat. You know, he's got veteran stats, so he's got weapon skill 5, he's leadership 9, he's got 3 up save, but then he can gain all the stuff that a Centurion can gain. But he gets a 5-point boarding shield, which I thought was a bit of a bargain. And then he can also have like a Warhawk jump pack. He can have a Spatha bike. He can have a scimitar as well. So there's loads of options for him, but he's a very, very, very cheap
it's also as well, it's and then obviously when you look at the company command squad as well, I think that's when it starts to get, when you can start to have veterans with light.
Correct.
In a non-pride list. I think this is where he starts to get super interesting, actually.
Correct. So I think that you've hit the nail on the head with this. So for 80 points, you can give him, I think it's 5 veterans. I think from memory, you can give him 5 veterans. So they're not like a normal command squad where they start with 3. Now those veterans are a 3-up save. They've got leadership 8, but they have a banner which makes them leadership 9, a company standard essentially, that makes them leadership 9, and makes some scoring. So the banner will give that guy line, and then the guide gives the unit line. And exactly as you say, are
you sure it's not 3? I'll tell you for why. Because, and this is from
I think it's 5. I think it's 5.
Because if his company commands was 80 points, 5 veterans is 115 points.
Well, it might be 3. I will check that.
Yeah. Because if it is 5 with a banner that align, then that is insane.
Yes, it's a good value. Yeah, really, really good value. So, however, and this, I think, like that bit aside, extra scoring from veterans, fine, whatever, cool. But the thing that I think is absolutely worth 40 points is this. So he has the strength of the Legion rule. So, and he has to be part of the unit. It's not like a Delegatus where it needs to draw line of sight or whatever, like a Centurion, a Master of Signals where like one unit on the board can do it. He has to be part of that unit, but if they fail a morale check on the turn that they regroup and they manage to regroup, if they fail a morale check,
they fall back.
But his legion line, they fall back, but then they automatically regroup,
and they can behave.
They can shoot
and
charge as normal, so they can move 3 inches and shoot and charge as normal. Now, where I think this is probably really good, actually, is not so much like a front line unit, but something along the lines of like a heavy support squad or something like that. Now I understand that if they're heavy they can't shoot or whatever, but those backfield units are just so precious that it's you really don't want to lose them in ephemeral checks. The other one I think this might be useful on is Legion artillery, so like a rapier squad. So that might be useful. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I just think this is a really massively useful role. Really useful.
I think we're going to see this guy far more than we think we're going to.
Yeah, 40 points. Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think it gets expensive if you start adding things like Thunderhammers, though. I think like a Thunderhammer, from what I remember, is like 30-point upgrade.
Yeah.
If you start adding like nice weapons to it, it gets really pricey.
Just do the gentlemanly thing and just give him a chargeable weapon.
Yeah, and he can take artist armor as well. So he's basically a Centurion warlord. Yeah, he can just basically be a Centurion.
If he's 120 points for him and a 5-man command squad of veterans, then we're in business.
I tell you what, why don't I pause this now, find out, and then we can let the audience know.
Okay, let's do that rather than just guessing. We were both wrong. You get 4.
Yeah, but then you did the maths, didn't you?
Yeah. So he and a 4-man command squad. So a 5-man unit is 120 points, which is 5 points more than a 5-man veteran squad, except that they have a flag and they're Legion 9.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be scoring veterans are great. These guys are going to be absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually as well because these guys, so they don't have access to the Proteus in the same way a normal command squad does, but they have access to the Legion Rhino, Legion Drop Pod. But again, I see a real place for this within like ZM, right? Scoring veterans within the ZM, I think would be massively massive useful. You did make a good point though when we were off air. He's not like a Legion veteran sergeant. He doesn't have 3 attacks base. He actually only has 2 attacks base. So it is interesting that he's just basically like a normal veteran, but with the Legion Opto rule.
Yeah, he's just curried the favor of the mook that is in charge of him than the mook that runs the Legion, really. So
yeah. So pretty cool. And I think that with the new plastic upgrades, I think that this is
this guy's definitely got place. I think that's where we are. Are we giving him a thumbs up?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I'd be interested to see what other people. Yeah, medium for me. He's not an auto include, but
no, I don't think he's an auto include, but I think he is. I think he's good.
Yeah.
And then the last one we're going to look at today is the Legion Overseer.
Yeah. So I had a query about this already. I was reading through the rules, but I'll come to my query at the very end. Yeah, but so it's interesting, this guy. So basically, he is in charge of all the T3 mooks that you might want to take within your army. So if you wanted to take Solar Auxiliary or Militia, but didn't want a whole allied detachment, this would be an option. And I think the reason why it's quite good, so for 25 points, you get some very, very cheap scoring within your list without having to pay an HQ tax within the allied detachment. I think often with an allied detachment as well, you kind of feel like, oh, I've got the slots, so I've got to fill them up with something. Like I've got a spare heavy, I need to put a Malcador in there or whatever. But with this, it's just you get some cheap line units because they're lives rifle sections and militia infantry squad. I was pleased to see that you could take militia on this because they've been such an afterthought, I think, and the Solar Auxilia have really dominated over the past like 4 months because it's just been all Solar Orgs chat. So this was really cool. But he's not.
It also replaces the what the hell? I used to run this army as well. I took it to like 2 events. What is it called?
Militia. You mean militia?
No, the right of war where you can have militia within your.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to come back, circle back to this because I'm going to be irritated because I can't remember what it's bloody called. But essentially, it's replacing that which was from again
Sacrificial Offering.
No, not Sacrificial Offering. No, it was not Sacrificial Offering. It was
something else. Anyway,
something else. So essentially, it was the right of war in Book 6 where you could have militia inside the and they gave you additional rules by having them inside. As in, for instance, like they wouldn't run away.
Right, yeah.
You could also use them to screen your units, so you could take invulnerable saves.
Interesting. Militia. You sure that wasn't Sacrificial Offering?
No, sure.
Okay. Well, going back to the Legion Overseer, he is a 25-point upgrade to have the right to be able to do that, but he gains the support squad, so he couldn't be your compulsory HQ, and I think that's interesting because he's one of only Legion consoles that could that gain the support squad rule. So I think that's interesting, but probably right and fair because he's not overseeing the battle. He is, as your compulsory HQ, he's overseeing all the legions. You can take up to 1 to 3 Legion las rifle sections or militia infantry squads, not mixing and matching. It's an or, and then when they're in formation, they can use his leadership. And they also gain the Legion Auxiliary rule. Now, we haven't gone through the
Robert.
Legion. Yes. What was it called?
Army of Dark Compliance.
That's it. Yes, it all makes sense to me now.
Thank you.
So we haven't gone through the Legion Auxiliary rules. You might be somebody who's seen them leaked because we've seen a fair few leaks of them already. But there are some pretty decent ones in there.
There are some really good ones. Obviously, there's some crap. Like there was crap when we talked about the legions inducti in Siege of Cathonia. There was some really good stuff, and there was some middling stuff, and then there was some stuff that you were just like, well, I'm never going to see those on the table. Exactly. I think it's kind of the same with the Legiones Auxilia rules.
Yeah, 100%. So he is leadership 9 because obviously he's a centurion, so those guys could be using their leadership 9.
I mean, yeah, you would say that, but also they can get themselves to leadership 11. So
well, no, but they can't. Not on this.
Oh, they can't
though.
in
no,
this.
They can't. No, because I
was more talking about in the context of the like Solar Auxilia list. They can make themselves leadership 11.
Yes, that's right. And so, just if you're not familiar with Solar Orcs, you couldn't.
Then head over to the Heresy Hammer Patreon.
Yes.
Subscribe for just £3 a month because Rob and I did a 4-part series on playing the Solar Auxilia. So
yeah. So basically, the long and short of it is you can't take a cohort doctrine with these 3 because there's no legate marshal in there. So it's not that a cohort doctrine is not an option for you. However, I think one of the most interesting things is he must join them, so he can't leave them. It's basically a command squad essentially, or the command squad rules.
Yeah.
But he also gains the Legion Auxilia rule, which I thought was
interesting.
Which was also very interesting. And the final rule for him is that the controlling player can't allocate wounds to him. So basically, if you take a wound, it will have to be on the Solar Orcs guys, not on him.
You can't just tank wounds on him, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. But it does say, and this is important, and it says specifically the controlling player can't allocate wounds to him. So if you're facing an opponent and they can go, well, I'm going to snipe out the
he can be sniped out.
Yeah. So that's really critical here because then your Solar Orcs goes to like leadership 7 or whatever their base is. Then in night fight, they could be running because they haven't got all the buffs from the Vox interlinks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think for cheap scoring, I think this will be massively useful, and there'll be ways to make this work. But will you see a lot of it? It'll be from people who are committed to painting 30 to 60 Solar Auxilia guys, right? That will be it. Like if you have the time to do that, then that's fine. But most Legion players are just going to be like, I'm not painting 60 guys, so that's absolutely nuts.
No.
And then finally, in the rules, it was a little bit unclear about the war gear option. So if you
comes with a power lash as standard.
Yeah. So it says basically it can take a lash or a power maul for 15 points. Now, what I didn't really understand from the rules was it exclusively a lash or a power maul, or can he take all the other options like a thunderhammer or whatever? So I'm not entirely sure about that. The lash is a new weapon. It's like strength 3, AP 3. But yeah, the war gear options were interesting because it was like it kind of suggested that you could only take those things, but maybe not because he's a centurion. Yeah. So, but I just think that what will look cool is the lash. Like people will take the lash because I think it's
cool. Of course.
I would have loved to seen in these rules. I think like something like a rule like an example, which is that they can kill one guy. They can choose to sacrifice one guy to give +1 movement or +2, like fleet 2 or something like that. Something that would scare everybody else into kind of having an additional rule where you kind of like shot one in the head and then
it feels just a bit too. The problem is that feels sort of traitory.
Yeah.
But
okay.
It feels quite Army of Dark compliance, but but it doesn't necessarily feel like, would you have a salamander who would be shooting guys in the head in order to get him?
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's funny though, because there's the whole vibe of an overseer who can then buy a lash kind of doesn't feel very loyalist to me. But
no.
Yeah,
perhaps he buys them all. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's why they gave it the second option, because the maul is more loyalisty. I don't know,
clubbing people around the head. So that brings us to the end of this.
That's it. Yeah, so just emergency podcast. Yeah,
emergency episode. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. That'd be really useful because we want to gain some feedback on kind of what you think. What you think is going on with some of the rules? Are you going to look to take some of these characters? Who else would you like to see? Like which of the kind of most special characters are we missing? Obviously, I've already mentioned Forex, but we'll see if anyone else backs me up on that. If you want some more of the sort of more tactical side of things, you can obviously go and head over to the Patreon, subscribe for just £3 a month. Like we just said, Rob and I just finished a 4-parter on Solar Orcs, both going through the lists, looking at the different unit types, what's good, what's not, how to play with them, how to leverage their rules, how to actually build the tertios, and also how to play against them if you are a Mechanicum or a Legion player. If you've got any kind of questions, feedback, you can email us at heresyhammer30k@gmail.com or drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends, tell everyone about how lovely we are. And if you're on Instagram, you can follow us at Heresy Hammer Show. Tag all of your photos with hashtag Heresy Hammer. And on the normal main show feed, we feature our favourites, and Rob and I dissect them and go through them. Or Lee. Actually, it's more often you and Lee.
Yeah.
But whatever. Don't even know who that guy is. Right, we're off to go and sleep a bit more and then eat Easter eggs.
Good idea. The best of days. Warhammer plus Easter eggs.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.